So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a scene that has, actually before I do any of the creation stuff, I just want to show you guys some cool atmospheric stuff in art. Not in that. Although there's something interesting happening here. So this is an overcast day. The light is coming from above. We have these kind of convection current shapes that you have in the bulbous shapes that are happening in other clouds. But because those are the more dense parts of the clouds, they are now blocking light coming from above. And so you end up with the light peeking around the corners and the dark parts underneath. So this is what's going to happen anytime in the shadows of the cloud. It's just more pronounced here. So I think that's a great example. Some awesome stuff from, this is Bierstadt, I think. So notice first of all that there are temperature fluctuations in the atmosphere, so it's not uniform. There's also density fluctuations, so he's able to get quite a bit of, that kind of smoky, early morning type of look out of it, or just after a rainstorm, whatever it is.
When you say that there are temperature fluctuations in the atmosphere, you mean that there's still a variety between cools and warms?
So I don't think you can see this on the projector, but like that's warm, that's cool, that's warm, that's cool, that's warm, that's cool, that's warm, that's cool.
How are you supposed to be able to manage that though?
I think he's just taking, he's got his palette and he's got, kind of a mixed color with some warms on one side and some cools on the other side. And he's just picking up the color and like just dabbing it in, picking up from the different parts of his palette as he goes. I think it's a lot harder to do this digitally. It has to be a deliberate effort, whereas for him it may happen naturally as a result of the way that he mixed his palette. What were you going to say, Melissa?
I'm just saying, like, when you get to that point where it's like so hard to see the difference, does it really matter where you put them?
You mean like?
The warms versus cools, because it's like all the same value.
Yeah, so they are all the same value, that what he's painting, and it's really just temperature fluctuations within that value. And I think that's what you want. You don't want to have the warms be darker than the cools, or it's going to start to not look like atmosphere. So having that consistent or somewhat consistent value is important. This is a great example right here of how you lose the shadows first and still keep some of the highlights. Even though these lit areas on the hill are darker than this stuff down here, you're still getting so much of it in comparison to what's happening in the shadows, because it's just flattening out, right? When you put this stuff in your piece, it pops. I think very few painters are really good at it. So if you can get this type of stuff to feel good, where the shadows are dropping out and you're still getting the right colors on the reflected end, then your pieces are going to look really nice when you get in the distance. Any vistas or anything else that you've got where that type of thing is happening is going to be nice.
Do you know how to do that?
I'll try and show you in a second. So similar type of thing happening here. We'll just jump through these quickly. I really like how massive the arena feels. And notice how this is all basically like a gigantic God ray, right? Like everything else all the light is losing contrast here in the light, and then where the light isn't, it's crisp and sharp and detailed. So your atmosphere is always going to be a response to the light source. You'll have more atmosphere where the sun is shining than where the sun isn't, if that makes sense. At least in the shadow dropout kind. You'll always have atmosphere. Always the light is being scattered in the distance. It's always going to get darker and stuff like that. But when the sun is shining somewhere, then suddenly those shadows jump up in value quite a bit. Lots of kinetic energy going on here. I also like the brush strokes underneath the flakes, kind of give it directionality, even though it's just kind of like flicked paint under that part. I think this is Craig Mullins. Nice driving rain there, just streaks across the canvas. again, great example of like fluctuations and even just, I mean, there's so much energy. Like you're not seeing something specific here. It's very evocative, but the atmosphere is really what makes this piece sing. The light is nice, the colors are nice, but the atmosphere is crazy and it's cool, right? This is kind of cool. This is a photo. Just clouds are really weird and they do strange things sometimes. So just like marching along like a bunch of elephants in a parade or something. So I love the mixture of effects that are happening here. I mean, obviously he painted this water nicely, but you know, he's got the dust in the air, the beams that are happening, and then bloom back here where, you know, we're assuming that the sun is somewhere back there. That sky back there is extremely bright in comparison to what's happening here. And we'll talk more about exposure in the next lecture, and that's part of what allows this type of thing to happen. But one quick note, so because clouds are so big and mountains are so big, you know, the top of the cloud sees a different sun than the bottom of the cloud sees. So you're seeing the sunset and you see it turn redder, but to you it's all red, you know, all the light around you is red. But to the cloud, the top is seeing the white sun and the bottom may be seeing, you know, this yellow-orange sun. And so you end up with these strong gradients near sunset. Sometimes on a building you might get a very subtle version of this effect, but it's going to be strongest on, you know, like on a really tall building you might get it. But usually it's on stuff like mountains and stuff. I love all the little smoke that's added in down here. I think this is actually still from the film, and I believe this is Dylan Cole. And I believe what he did here is he took different animated planes of texture and stuff and put it all together. I think some of it are, you know, like video clips of explosions of fire and stuff like that, but he just composed them all so that they were in this active moving mountain. So that's pretty cool, especially when you consider the technical component of it. But look at how much heat and light is coming out between these big, thick cloud bits. I love this. So the sun is right there. You have these nice rays coming out from it. Awesome atmosphere throughout the piece. But there's a couple things that are interesting. So the atmosphere is cool here and it's warm here. So there's going to be a halo around the sun where the atmosphere appears to be warmer because that light is passing through instead of being scattered out to the sides, right? And that's the warmer light. I also love this, the specular effect with a bloom on top of it off of the river. It's really nice.
How do you know when to add blooms?
It's an exposure effect. So we'll talk about, so blooms are not atmospheric, they're exposure related, and we'll do that in the next lecture. If you add them incorrectly, it will look bad, so don't just start doing it willy-nilly. Did anybody see Van Helsing? I think this is the part in the end when like the girl or whatever shows up in the clouds with her family. It's so cheesy. So you can't really see this on the projector, but this is awesome handling of a night scene. I love the stuff that's happening back here in the distance, the reflection off of the body of water in the distance. We get these couple other glints. But everything else handled very darkly. This one is pretty insane. This is a matte painting.
What? It was pretty huge file.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure this isn't full resolution, but like just you, yeah. So it gives you this really great sense of depth, a great sense of scale to this. I mean, just like that hazy atmosphere that's happening between here and there. And yeah, the sun kind of raking across the landscape is really nice as well. Lots of fluctuations in the value back here. I assume mostly to describe hills, but you also get a sense that, you know, these clouds are kind of casting shadows back here. You can't really see those clouds, but there's clouds here that you can't see. And look, there's that warm.
What are you looking for?
I don't know what you're talking
The
about.
tower on like the castle, whatever. That one, not the very right one.
This one?
Zoom in on that a little bit more. Maybe it's just.
It's probably because of the way the reflected light's looking. It looks kind of like
It's
almost like a tangent where the light.
Yeah, it looks like the
the
water's
river's
like
going
passing
through,
through that top little thing.
I see what you.
Oh, right. Yeah, I can see that.
Just the way they did the line.
So, man, this is a terrible example. It looks bad up there, but you know, you can see he used atmosphere in this scene to create depth here, just with the values getting darker. So, even if you don't have sky with sun in it, you can still use atmospheric perspective to dim things out. Lots of crazy subsurface scattering in these clouds. It's nice.
Oh, does that feel good ink?
Yeah.
Did you paint that?
This is from space, as you can see, or from pretty high up.
This painting
But-
was done by Understate.
But look at the shadows being cast by the clouds. The streaks in them. That's really cool. So you're actually seeing God rays from above, right? And then just the cool gigantic sheet of cloud with the kind of soft bubbly stuff underneath. It's pretty interesting. So one quick note, the temperature that you make the atmosphere is going to be important. Now, it's possible that this was painted deliberately. I think it was by brothers Hildebrandt. Don't know which one of them. But they used a very like purplish color for their atmosphere, and it pops. The color, the image feels really colorful, but it also feels unnatural. Like it doesn't get a sense of place to it. It feels like a painting, and it's deliberately a painting, right?
It's awesome though.
Whereas
Is that
this,
bad?
you know, that atmosphere, it's very desaturated. It's just this soft blue, and it feels more natural. This feels like I could step onto that street and be in that place, right? I'm not saying it's bad necessarily to use unnatural colors. Just be aware that when you do use unnatural colors, it will remove the sense of place.
Feels unnatural.
And it becomes more storybook-like, you know. All right, well,
Okay, I have a question about that because in my piece, this since it's kind of like a sci-fi thing, the sky is purple in my piece. So would purple atmosphere be the right thing for that?
your thing is on a planet that doesn't have atmosphere, though, right?
No, there is
Or it would-
atmosphere
it would.
on that place. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, if the sky is purple because the atmosphere is purple, then yes, the atmosphere should be purple. If the sky is purple because there's giant nebula up there, then you know the atmosphere is not going to be purple. You'll have the ground lit by that purple sky as in the shadows, but it's just going to get dimmer and darker as it goes further back away from you. Although if there's really no atmosphere, it's not going to get any darker at all. Because,
And what does it do?
well, it won't do anything. It'll just be bright all the way up. It'll be up to the angle of the sun with respect to the ground plane if there's no atmosphere at all.
And so that, like those moon landing photos where it's just like really flat looking.
It's just stark.
That's just
Yep,
the way
there's
it
no
would look
atmosphere.
anyway?
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, it's flat because there's no atmosphere. Yeah, and I think that would be a very disorienting thing if you were on the moon. You would, you know, like say you were like jumping, you would have a harder time telling if you know, how far away the bottom of a cliff is or something like that, because a lot of the cues that you would be used to would be gone, and you don't have trees for comparison or cars or whatever else.
On the moon.
On the moon. There goes the whole freaking week.
I read something just Oh man, I just lost my